Welcome to this first session of this training course, which is about desalination in the world. Nowadays, desalination started spread all over the globe, especially in hot countries. And it's good to know that it's widely used to supply drinking and domestic water uses over cities and many countries in the world. So let's start with this first part. You can see here that water represents two-thirds of the Earth's surface water. Now, ocean represents more than 97% of the total water exists in the planet. And fresh water is only represent 2.5% of the total water available in the planet. But the problem is not here, but because out of 2.5% of fresh water, there is almost 70% of it are glaciers, while groundwater is only 30% of out of 2.5% of fresh water, which is not easily always accessible by human and other species. On the other side, we don't have always the tools and utilities to dig wells and extract those groundwater. Here we can notice that 0.4% out of the 2.5% of fresh water, which is really very low quantity, is considered as surface water, where humans and animals can utilize it directly. But unfortunately, not always this surface water is free of contaminants. Sometimes we cannot use it because it's highly contaminated water. So you can imagine how scarce is the fresh water in our planet. Now, I'm going to show you some important statistics as per IDA, International Desalination Association. In 2013, almost 78 million cubic meter per day of desalinated water was produced. 78 million cubic meter per day. This is only the desalinated water, not the fresh water or the feed water to desalination plant. While in 2015, this number has increased to reach 86 million cubic meter per day of desalinated water was produced. It's almost very high. But this amount was produced from almost more than 18,000 desalination plants spread all over the world and in operation as well. And this water is supplying more than 300 million people all over the planet. But it's very important to notice this graph as well. In this graph, we can notice that desalination gradually is increasing from 1965 till 2005, where the annual desalinated water is increasing from almost zero in 1965 till in 2015 we are close to 90 million cubic meter of desalinated water was produced per day. Now, what about 2020 or in the future, 2030 or other years? We will see soon in the coming slides. In this slide here, in the graph on the left, we can notice the desalination by region. It's very important to notice that hot regions in the world are using the largest amount of desalinated water. For example, the region of Middle East and North Africa, which we call it MENA, is using almost 47% of the annual and daily desalinated water in the world. It's a bit huge. Almost half of the world, half the desalinated water in the world is used only in the Middle East and North Africa. On the other side, we can see a country like Australia and East Asia and Pacific countries are using almost more than 18%. So almost more than 18% of the daily desalinated water is used in the East Asia and Pacific region, including China, including Australia and other countries. On the other side, we can notice that North America, which is specifically the United States, is consuming almost 12% of the daily desalinated water in the world. It's a huge, and this number is increasing gradually and annually. While for example, European country, we can notice they are using almost 9.2 of the annual desalinated water. So it's very important to notice here how desalination distributed all over the regions and all over the globe. On the other side here, we can notice that the desalination growth by year. And as I told you, gradually from 1965 or 1970, desalination plant and desalinated water has increased annually. So here, this graph represents how many cubic meters per day or million cubic meter per day was added to the old desalination plant. For example, today we are desalinating 50 million cubic meter per day. So tomorrow or in the next year we have additional 10 million cubic meter of desalinated water was produced. So this graph is just showing us the annual additional of desalinated water in the globe. And we can notice the peak started from 2000 to 2010. Within these 10 years, large number of desalination plant was operated and manufactured all over the globe. So just imagine here, we are almost close and reached to 90 million cubic meter of desalinated water produced per day. It's really high number. It's also very important to discuss here this important map. This map showing us the global distribution of operational desalination plant and their capacities by sector in the world. So we can notice that a desalination plant distributed in the Middle East and North Africa here, and in the western part of Europe as well, there's a large number of desalination plant there. And we can notice that in the United States also there is a demand of desalination water. And from these colors, you can notice that most of those desalination plants distributed even in Australia, in Middle East and North Africa, and even in the United States are used for municipal water applications. So they are supplying the municipal usages. Okay, and whenever we can notice that in the region like China, Singapore, and those countries, APAC countries, Asia Pacific countries, the desalination plant used for power generation applications and used as well for industrial application, as well as you can see that in the United States as well. So the main application for desalination plant in the world for municipal application, then from industrial and other application like power generation, irrigation, and others. And here we can notice in Australia there are large desalination plants. You can notice that there are many large desalination plants distributed all over the coastal areas of Australia, as well as in the Middle East region, especially here close to Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Oman, Qatar, and other countries. This is also a very important map where we can see that large desalination plants represented by their capacity and as well as which type of feed water is used there and what's the technology used for this desalination application. So we can notice that a region like Middle East region here and North Africa as well, the main source of desalination plants is the seawater. So seawater is the feed water for those desalination plants to produce desalinated water. And as well as we can notice on the United States, the main source of those desalination plants are based on brackish water. So most of those brackish water could be from the surface water or groundwater as well. On the other side, we can see a country like Australia have many large desalination plants. Most of them and almost all of them are using seawater as the main source of desalination. Now, in this part of the world, which is very close in the middle of Saudi Arabia, where there is no access to the seawater, you can notice that they are using brackish water, which is represented by green dots, using brackish water as a source water and feed water for those desalination plants. The same you can notice here in India, in this part. India is using also seawater as well for desalination plant, and they are using as well some river water and brackish water as well for desalination application. In China and Asia Pacific region, you can notice that in the middle of China, most of those desalination plants based on brackish water as a feed water for those plants. But in the coastal areas, you can see from the red dots, they are using seawater as a source water for desalination plant. Hope this slide is very important and very informative for us to see which type of source water we can use it. So let's discuss here this slide chart by chart. We can notice here in the first charts that desalination capacity by region. We can notice, as we discussed, that Middle East region and North Africa is representing almost 45% or 47% of the annual desalinated water. Then we can notice that Asia and Pacific region is presenting the second largest quantity and consumption of desalinated water. Then we can notice USA and other countries coming in. And out of that, we can see that almost, as we discussed, 47% of the desalinated water here in the Middle East. Then we can notice that Asia Pacific and North America is representing 11.9, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, we have a rule of thumb here. As much the country or the continent is located in a hot area, so we can expect that we have more desalination plant, and on the other side, when we see that country is located in a very cold area, like in the north side of Europe or in the North America, like Canada, you cannot expect that we have much desalination plant because we don't need that one. Why? Just keep it in your mind and search about why we don't need desalination plants for municipal applications when we have a very cold country. I think you know the answer. Here in this graph, we can see desalination by sector. So as we discussed, almost 59% of the desalinated water, which is more than half of desalinated water, is used for municipal application and even drinking water, while on the second consumption of desalination plant is almost 29% is used for industrial application. Just imagine petrochemical, oil and gas, and steel industry and other industries are using desalinated water for their processes and applications. This is a very important statistic. Keep it just in your mind. Then we have almost only 4.5% of the annual and daily desalinated water is used for power application. So the main desalination application is going actually for the municipal application. Then we have almost close to 2% of the annual and daily desalinated water is used for irrigation, then other activities. This is very important. Keep it in your mind because you need to know that desalination is very important for human life and it's very connected with us. We use it for our daily activity and tap water, for drinking water as well. Also very important in this slide to see who are the largest producer of desalinated water in the globe. So we can notice like a country of Saudi Arabia is producing the largest desalinated water in the globe. Then we have other countries like UAE, which is United Arab Emirates. Then we have United States and other countries. So those are the largest producers in the world of desalination plant. Saudi Arabia or Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is representing the largest country in the world producing desalinated water. So they are producing high amounts of desalinated water per day. Millions, more than 5 or 6 or 10 millions, we will see soon. Then we have United Arab Emirates, the United States, and as well as China, Australia, Algeria, Spain, and others. Here in this slide, we can see some important statistics as well. In the graph A over here, we can see how many desalination plants are existing in the world and how much the produced water out of that. So we have here 2 points. That the first, how much the produced quantity out of the desalination plant operated in the world, then how much the current available desalination plant could produce in the world. So we can see here the desalination plant and the operational desalination plant. So we can see in 2020 we are producing almost more than 90 million cubic meter per day of desalinated water, while the actual and already existing desalination plant can produce almost close to 120 million cubic meter per day. And you can notice here from this graph that annually the desalination demand is increasing. It's increasing in a peak way. So it's annually there is a new desalination plants already constructed, and others already operated, and other already expanded, and others has increased, and others have increased their production capacity. This is a very important point to keep it in your mind, that desalination is a promising and potential science for the coming decades. Now, in this graph B, we can notice that what are the most dominant desalination technologies in the world. Here, we can see almost close to 1995, MSF, represented here in red color, was the dominant desalination technology, which stands for multi-stage flash distillation as a part of thermal desalination, while from almost 2000, the most dominant desalination technology represented here in this blue line is the RO, reverse osmosis, and it's nowadays becoming the dominant desalination in the world. Just imagine in 2020 we have no more thermal desalination plant, while we have on the other side many desalination technologies coming, but the most dominant one is the RO. The RO, reverse osmosis, is the dominant, is the potential, is the promising technology coming for the future decades. Why? We will see that one once we discuss all those desalination technology, and once we reach to the part of desalination economics in the last section. It's very important to keep this fact in your mind, that RO plants, reverse osmosis desalination plants, are the dominant ones in the coming future. Now, this is a very important topic. We need to discuss it about the capacity of operational desalination facilities by technology and by feed water. So we can notice here in the graph A that RO plant reverse osmosis represents almost close to 70% of the operational desalination plants in the world. 70% of the operational and desalination plants in the world are based on reverse osmosis technology. It's really high number. Okay, and here you can see the expected number of those plants in the world. On the other side, we can see the second technology representing almost 18% of the daily produced desalinated water are through multi-stage flash distillation, MSF, which is a really excellent technology, but it has some little bit drawbacks. We'll discuss it once we reach that part of the desalination economics. Then we have the third technology, which is really excellent technology. I like it personally, MED, multi-effect desalination technology, which produces almost 70% of the daily and annual desalinated water in the globe. Okay, so this is very important to keep it in your mind. Then we find other technology like EDI or ED, electrodialysis, and we have nanofiltrations and others. While here in this B graph, we can notice something very important, that almost 61% of the feed water used for desalination technologies are seawater. This is very important statistic, because you need to keep it in your mind. 61% of the source water or feed water of desalination plant is seawater, while on the other side, almost 21% of the desalination plants are using brackish water as a feed water for their application. Then we have here 8% representing river water and other water coming gradually. But here there is a very important thing to highlight, that almost there is a 6% of the source water used in desalination plants are considered wastewater, which is, yes, it's slow, but this is very promising. Why? Because this 6% is representing wastewater are considered as part of the recycling. So we have wastewater, This wastewater is already treated, then it's recycled again through a desalination technology to get fresh water. So hope in future this 6% is increasing to reach 10% or 15%, which means that we have managed to produce 15% of desalinated water from wastewater, which is saving and sustainable approach to have saving, to have water saving and protecting this a very valuable source for us. Now, we can see here the main and the largest countries in the world producing desalinated water. We can see that Saudi Arabia is producing more than 5 million. I think now they are producing more than even 7 million cubic meter per day. Then we have United Arab Emirates are producing more than 5 million cubic meter per day. Then we can see here the United States producing more than 3 million cubic meter per day, then Spain to more than 2.5 million cubic meter per day of desalinated water. Then we can see Algeria, Qatar, Bahrain, and Singapore. This is a very important slide just to keep it in your mind that desalination technologies are growing more and more in the coming decades. Finally, these are some important interesting facts. Just keep it in your mind when we discuss desalination because this is very important. Now, the largest desalination plant in the world is located in Saudi Arabia with a capacity more than 1 million cubic meter per day. This is only one desalination plant. I think it's called Ras Al Khair, if I'm not mistaken. They have one desalination plant having different type of desalination within that plant, producing more than 1 million cubic meter per day. It's really large. That's why Saudi Arabia is the dominant country and the leader in the world for desalination plants. Then we can see that those desalination plants distributed all over the world consuming more than 200 million kilowatt per hour each day. So they have a huge consumption of energy as well. So we are burning fuel in order to get desalinated water. Okay, so now it's very important to consider that 8 liters of seawater or almost 2 gallons of seawater are consumed to produce 4 liters of fresh water or 1 gallon. So the recovery here is almost 45 to 50%. So we have inlet 8 liters of seawater to get out of that 4 liters of desalinated water. So we have almost the recovery close to 50%. Then it's very important that desalination plants are distributed more than 100 countries in the world having desalination plant, which is really large number. Then just keep this fact in the world that 1,000 gallon of fresh water from desalination costs 2.5 to almost $5. So $5 is approximate cost to produce 1,000 gallon of desalinated water compared to only $2 from conventional fresh water. So if we have fresh water, we can easily get desalinated water in cheaper cost, comparing that with desalination technologies. Now, you have to keep in mind that the largest and the dominant region in the world is Middle East, where they have the largest desalination plants in the world. Why that? Because they have large amount of fuel and they consider their energy prices are cheaper than other countries because they are well known for oil production and the energy sources. Okay, now it's very important to know that the energy consumption and represents almost 50 to 70% of the OPEX, I mean operational expenses and costs of seawater desalination. So the problem here, why many countries in the world cannot have seawater desalination, because the costs, operational costs of desalination is expensive, especially in terms of energy. It consumes 50 to 70% of the operational expenses of those desalination plant. Now, it's important to know, as I told you in previous discussion, that Saudi Arabia is the global leader in desalination. They are producing almost, only Saudi Arabia, 17% of the total desalinated water in the globe. Then we have United Arab Emirates producing almost 13% of the annual and daily desalinated plants water in the world. Then we have United States represents almost 13% of the daily desalinated plants in the world. These are some important facts. Keep it in your mind when we discuss desalination in future. Hope you enjoyed this part and you can get rest now. We will have coming sessions and I hope you enjoy this part of course. Thank you and see you soon. Goodbye.